They call me light-skinned black. I always told people I was mixed race. But what does that mean to me? I'll tell y'all something about a comparison of different Mesti communities in the USA and Canada. The hypocrisy of the way the outsiders who aren't part of any of these mixed communities kind of look at and describe these different communities. I want to give the example of a comparison between our community and the Melungeons. So, for the Ethnic Qarsherskiyan community, the vast majority of us knew about our heritage. And we always knew that we were mixed race. And we identified as mixed race. There are some of us who identified, and even some who still do identify, as being black, but they know that they're mixed, and they always knew most of the time. There are some of us that are light-skinned, like me, who could pass as white arguably. Most white folks don't think I'm white when they see me. There are some who have. Usually if someone thinks I'm white, it's black folks. But also, it's usually black folks who call me light-skinned black and can recognize my mixed features. So that's kind of a paradox. So I am from the Ethnic Qarsherskiyan community. We're from the USA and Canada. But who are the Qarsherskiyan people? There is a lot of hateful people who have dehumanized and demonized us. And they wanted to uproot our community through violence, and it didn't work. So they've been trying to use the internet as a weapon against us to spread misinformation, to make people mad. So angry, misinformed people will harass us and basically help do their bidding and work for these bad actors that have agendas against us. And why would anyone hate us? Is because we're a multi-generationally mixed race community. Our first mixed race ancestors that were the progenitors of our community, a lot of them existed in colonial North America before the USA and Canada were independent countries that were even thoughts or ideas. It goes way back, and it shatters the racist agenda that America is a white country and that there's never been people of color here until modern times. People think that it was just black and white folks. They tried to erase the Native Americans and the mixed race communities and other minority communities that were here, and they don't want us to tell our history because it makes some white folks uncomfortable to hear what other white folks did hundreds of years ago, I guess. And there's other reasons. Some people like me have become prominent faces on social media, and we've said some things that are controversial that upset white supremacists and neo-Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan. And so there's some literal proud self-identified Klan members that have personal vendettas against some of us because we've done upset them, and when they say things, we've confronted them. That made them more mad when we exposed some of the things they were doing. But with all that being said, I want y'all to don't blindly believe everything people say. If you want to learn about what we believe and what we say, you go to the source and you learn from us. If you want to study the Qarsherskiyan community, you have to go to us and hear what we have to say. Because outsiders say things that aren't true that we can disprove. And there aren't a lot of sources yet, as of now, covering our community. The best sources with the most details and information on our origins and history is all stuff that influencers like me have documented. And I'm going to explain why that is. Across North America, across Canada and the USA, there are hundreds of groups of people that can be described as triracial isolates. If there were mixed race people that were marrying other mixed race people or free people of color for several generations, they're multi-generally mixed race, and this was happening a long time ago. And sometimes these were in isolated rural communities. That forms triracial isolates. There's a lot of these groups. Most of them consist of just one or two families, and they're not like groups that have a name or large populations. Some of the more well-known groups include the Lumbis, the Nanticokes, and the Melungeons. The contemporary Nanticokes, I mean. The Nanticokes are a Native American tribe, but like many tribes in contemporary times, most of their members are of mixed ancestry. Because, genocide, colonization, and East Coast tribes being like the very first tribes to make contact or be contacted, so. But, about our Qarsherskiyan community, in 1991 there was a group of people, and they kind of realized that there were all these multi-generationally mixed race families. Some of us were more light and could pass because of their phenotype and features that looked sub-Saharan African, and some of us were living as Native Americans because they stayed in touch with that part of their heritage, and they were in contact with the tribes they descended from, and they live on reservations. So our community, it was like the Louisiana Creole community, where there's people. It's repeated itself many times for many communities. So in 1991, light-skinned mixed folks thinking they was white, the dark-skinned mixed, and of those people that thought they were white, there was some of them begin to have a chip on their shoulder for their own cousins, biological cousins, and they didn't know that they had black or native in them, and they were very prejudiced because they thought they was pure white. There's a motorcycle club near me. But, so colorism had been a big problem, and we wanted to get together and unite our community. We're not making a new community. Our community has existed for hundreds of years. We're just naming our community, and we're getting organized. So, you should study the term ethnogenesis if you want to understand what's happening here. In modern times, contemporary Qarsherskiyans are kind of solidifying into a more crystallized identity. A natural process that wasn't intentional, that's just happening as we use the internet to connect with one another and share our stories and family histories and knowledge. And we unite under the term Qarsherskiyan. The term Qarsherskiyan is basically like it's like our community is just where all the leftover triracial isolate groups are wrapped up into it. If you weren't part of one of the named communities, like the Redbones or the Melungeons, or, the Sumter Turks, or the Lumbis, if you weren't part of one of those groups that had a name, that people, in the eugenics movement were, saying, the Melungeons, them Melungeons. If you didn't have a name for your community like that, it was just these mixed people, and some of them get called black or white, and that's how our community was being erased. It's not that we didn't exist, it's not that our communities knew, it's just we didn't have a name, and because of that, we were getting swept under the rug. People were going to forget who they were. And so we were fighting to preserve our stories and our history and our culture. There is a Qarsherskiyan culture. It is real, and it's not cultural appropriation. And it varies from family to family, because different families have different origins in different areas and stuff. But essentially, the Qarsherskiyan cultures is the cultures of our people that we inherited from our ancestors. So for me, I am a mix mainly of white, black, Native American, and North African. My Native American and North African ancestry makes up smaller amounts of my DNA. So that means that my what the white supremacists call pure, I hate that term, but I don't know how else to explain it for a way everyone here will understand what I'm trying to say. Blood quantum and all of that unfortunate history about that. My last full-blooded Native ancestors and North African ancestors lived generations ago. You have to keep in mind that in our community, there's endogamy. So you might have someone in our community who's 10% genetically Native American or racially Native American, But that doesn't mean that you know how long ago that native ancestor lived, because you got like someone who is mixed marrying someone else who is mixed. So there's children who both of their parents are mixed and have a similar heritage. And those children grow up and marry other people of a similar heritage. So it's not like the ancestry is being diluted. It's not like people keep, it's not like if a black person marries a white person, then that mixed kid grows up and marries a white person and has kids. They grow up to marry more white people. It's not a story of blood quantum and dilution. It's just like layers being wrapped around and around and around and around, kinda. So through like endogamy, which doesn't mean inbreeding, it just means marrying people of the same background. Not all mixed people are related. Through the process of extensive endogamy, some Qarsherskiyan families have preserved high amounts of DNA from certain ancestors, or certain ancestries, I mean, that were far back in their tree. And it just kept getting like the same kind of origins circulating around and around instead of being diminished each generation, if you can understand what I'm saying. So in my family, we are a mix of mostly black and white with some native and North African ancestry, and and further back on our family tree than the most recent white or black ancestors we had that married in and became like, you know, progenitors in our community. So as the culture gets passed down through generations, the black and white culture influence is more preserved, and we don't have as much native traditions. Although we do have some, and we passed the information down through generations. Before I even took the DNA tests and found out that yes, I absolutely, definitely have racial Native American ancestry, I already knew since I was a really little kid that I had Native ancestry, because my grandma told me about it. I know it sounds cliche because there's a lot of white people who think they had like a Cherokee princess in their ancestry. That's not really the case here though. Like, my grandma named an ancestor by name and told me, this ancestor you have is a native, and told me about this person. And when I was a little kid, I got taken to a powwow, and I have dark eyes and dark eyebrows. My hair was shorter, but I still had the dark hair. You could kind of see the red highlights. When she told them about my ancestry and stuff, when they saw my eyes. Somehow, when they saw my eyes, they could tell that I was of mixed, partial Native American ancestry. As a racial category, not that I'm claiming any tribes or anything. I don't claim to be an indigenous American or belong to any tribe that doesn't claim me, by the way. But when I was a little toddler, my grandma told them everything we knew about our native ancestor that I do have. It was pretty distant, but we never forgot that, and we never forsook or threw out that part of our heritage. A big thing in our community is our heritage is keeping all our heritage is that we inherit from the different peoples, different types of peoples we descend from, what people call races. So we inherited culture from white people, from black people, and from native people. So when I was a little kid, somehow the natives, they had seen low blood quantum mixed natives a lot. They just kind of saw something about my phenotype. They were saying it was my eyes. They could tell I was someone who had like trace amounts of native ancestry somehow. I don't know how, they just knew. And so when I was at the powwow, they gave me a rain stick, it was called. It was some kind of giant seed pod. I think it's native to South America, if I recall correctly. And you shake it, and it's just like a maraca type of instrument. It's by shaking it creates some music or noise that is used in ceremonies. They had me go around this circle, and I was dancing in the powwow with all of the indigenous American folks there. And I was a little kid, so I don't really remember a lot about it, but it was pretty great. And well, they gave me what they called a spirit bracelet. It was orange, a reddish brown. It had yellows and blacks in it now. So if they're anything like these ones, it was probably made from the dyed fibers. They come from the hair of alpacas and llamas, dyed different colors. It was indigenous craft, and they gave it to me. It was a little bracelet. Now I'm way older and it's too small to fit me, but I still have the bracelet. My grandma told me they called it a spirit bracelet. It looked a lot like these, but they didn't have the little dream catcher on it. These dream catcher, the number of points they have different meanings. These ones mean the eagle, by the way. I got these in Circleville, Ohio, at a family event. Some Qarsherskiyan folks gathering down there during the pumpkin festival. A lot of Qarsherskiyan folks go there. I didn't really know that until after I left. By the time I left, I knew I'd seen a few faces. Some people even took photos, and I was in the background, and they were posting the photos online, like Qarsherskiyan meeting. I was there, but I wasn't there. I went for the pumpkin fest and didn't know that some of my people were there, and that Qarsherskiyan folks have meetings there. But while we were there, we met someone, and they were of indigenous descent from South America, and they made these bracelets. So I bought them from them because I wanted to support indigenous businesses, and because I like them. I had my grandma tie these on my wrists because I was visiting my grandma and other relatives when I went up to Ohio and when I was there. And so she was there for me, and she tied these for me. And I've been wearing them ever since. I put these on in October 2025, and now it's February 2026, and I'm gonna wear them until they fall off. Hopefully I see them when that happens and pick them up and don't lose them. I'll keep them somewhere safe forever. Just like I still have my spirit bracelet. They're tied on there. They're not really stretchy. I wear them in the shower. They get cleaned every time I clean myself. I can't take them off. I have 2 cowrie shell bracelets on here. And the one with the little shells is also permanent. I can't take it off. It's tied on there. There's not a belt or a buckle thing. That also is on in the shower. I wash it with soap and clean it every time I clean myself in the shower. It takes like 3 seconds, you know. Cowrie shells are from West African culture. My black ancestors from West Africa used cowrie shells for currency and for religious practices, such as for divination. And also, they used them for all different kinds of things, like works of art, regalia. And the ancestral memory passed down for generations never left our community. Even though the cowrie shells we have here in North America are a different variety, we have actually, in the Qarsherskiyan community, we have the West African cowrie shells. I'm pretty sure these ones are from Western Africa or from Nigeria, or maybe they were even from Kenya or somewhere else in Africa. But in the Qarsherskiyan community, most of our black ancestry comes from foundational black Americans that were brought over from Central Africa and Western Africa. Many of them were indentured servants and slaves. And some of our families, some of these people were among like the very first black people in North America that we know about that are well documented. And they actually got freedom and became slave owners. But they were called mulattoes. So they were mixed race, but I mean, with the one-drop rule and with their phenotype, to everyone back then, they was just black. They're called the black slave owners in America. These early black folks, they were brought over before the chattel slavery and before you can be born into slavery if your mother's a slave, and before it became the solidified racial hierarchy crystallized. A lot of people misrepresent this history, and they're like, oh, look, there were black slave owners that were racist white supremacists. They weren't racist white supremacists. In their mind, they were just people, and they owned other people. It's a pretty bad idea. I don't support it, but that's just how they saw it. They didn't think that they were superior. But these people, they were called mulattoes, though. It wasn't just exactly black slave owners. So these people were part black and part white, and they kind of had a bit of a mindset influenced by both worlds. These people were brought over here and enslaved themselves, but it wasn't like in the movies and history books yet. The horrible things we hear about slavery became more and more so over time, but it happened very early in the institution of slavery's history in America. But these people were brought over here so early, it hadn't really happened yet by that time, so that they could own land and own slaves as people who were classified as black due to being mulatto and the one-drop rule. So people talk about the Sweat and the Chavez, or it's pronounced Sweet by Qarsherskiyan people. We call it Sweet. The Sweet, the Chavez, and the Goins families. We have these surnames. So do some of the Lumbys, some of the Melungeons, some of the Redbones. All of the main big triracial isolate communities have these surnames. And it likely originates, it could originate from multiple sources. I don't know much about it, but I could be wrong, but I think it originates from like one family that was brought here from Angola. And they were the first black Americans. They were brought to colonial Jamestown, to the Commonwealth of Virginia, which was a British overseas territory. It wasn't even America. It was Britain in North America on indigenous land. Just like the USA still is today, by the way. Don't ever forget that. So that's kind of our origins. We have centuries-old origins. Our community always existed, and we always knew who we were and about our mixed-race heritage. But here's the crazy thing. Melungeon community, a different community that's kind of similar to ours, but it's really different. They got their own culture. They're in the different areas of the USA, and they got different stuff going on. Some of us Qarsherskians live in Appalachia, but typically further north in the mountains than the Melungeons are. The Melungeons are like in southern Appalachia. And then, you know, because people move around and they don't stay in one region. I mean, some Melungeon descendants are like in California. Some Qarsherskians are like in Washington. But the homeland or the origin of where these people kind of started off from, the Melungeons was in like southern Appalachia. And the Qarsherskians were like in central and northern Appalachia, Tidewater region and Midwest and Great Lakes region. And then the Melungeons have diaspora communities that went to like the big cities on the Hillbilly Highway, and during the Great Migration, they came up north to places like Detroit to work in factories. So some diaspora pockets of Melungeons live there, but they brought over Appalachian and mixed American cultures. So it's really fascinating. But I walk 14 miles a day on average. My legs are freaking killing me. And it helps to pass my time to make these live streams for y'all. So it's good for me, and for those who seek knowledge, it's good for y'all too. So one thing is the Melungeons, the name for their community, Melungeon, originated as a slur for mixed-race people living in certain areas where the Melungeons, where their homeland is, where the contemporary Melungeons today can trace their roots back to. And a couple decades ago, back in the mid or late 1900s, there was a whole kind of Melungeon pride movement. They all reclaimed the term. And through DNA testing, some of them were surprised to learn they had black ancestry. Some of them already knew, but a lot of them didn't. And DNA testing kind of revealed their origins. That upset a few of them because they had some really cool lore and oral stories about their origins. And I don't think they were disproved, but there's a lot more to their origins than the lore claim. Like, the Melungeons could descend from Portuguese. Many of them have Iberian DNA on their test results, but they definitely do have black ancestry. Most of them accept it and are proud of it nowadays. There's some of them who are still surprised by this, and they're kind of coping with it. They didn't want that to be so. But you should only judge people as individuals, not as groups. And, different Melanesian people have their own minds. So I don't want you to get the wrong idea about these folks. Most of them are really proud of their heritage and where they come from, and they know about it. It's really been, decades since the 90s and early 2000s when the DNA testing became publicly available and all this research into the Melanesians first started. So people have known for decades now for sure. And there were some Melanesians who likely knew before. They just tried to hide their heritage as a survival mechanism. If the Jim Crow South and then after Jim Crow era, it's not like racism disappeared. So, you got to keep things like this in mind. But the thing is, the truth is that everyone was suddenly Melanesian. A lot of people who thought they was white, they do DNA testing or genealogical research, and then they're suddenly Melanesian and people of color. And look, I support this. I do. I'm not criticizing them. I'm just being honest with y'all. It's not true for every Melanesian. There's plenty of them who always knew. But especially in the diaspora and the families that moved out of Appalachia, a lot of these people are suddenly Melanesian. But, there's some communities who knew of their mixed heritage. There's some Melanesians that live in the Detroit area. They're called the Great Lakes Melanesians or the Lakemanite Melanesians. There might be some other names they're known by as well. And they always kind of knew of their mixed ancestry and Appalachian origins and that they was Melanesians. So when the slur got reclaimed and it became a self-identifier for their community, they was saying they were Melanesians very early on. And even before then, they knew that they were mixed. So it's really complicated. But generally speaking, a lot of white people or people who thought they were white suddenly became Melanesian as a self-identifier a couple decades ago. For the Qarsherskiyan community, a lot of mixed-race people always knew who they were, and nothing about our identity has changed. We suddenly became Qarsherskiyan, and that we have a term that we're calling ourselves now, but our identity and how we perceive ourselves and our ethnicity hasn't changed. We were mixed race and knew it before, and now we're mixed race and we know it still. So a lot of people criticize our community for making a name for ourselves and organizing our community to prevent assimilation and prevent our heritage from being lost as we get absorbed into what community leaders call the racially binary black and white America, where darker Qarsherskians just become black and lighter Qarsherskians become white, and over generations people forget they're mixed and they start to hate each other. We wasn't having that. So we saved our community from extinction and by assimilation, whether people like it or not. After everything our ancestors have been through, to see us fighting and divided, that must really upset them, and they'd be rolling in their graves. We're working really hard right now, and it's paying off. And some people will be upset and jealous, and they might be mad, but we know who we are, and we're not going to change how we identify. As the saying goes, we is proudly Qarsherskiyan, we be Qarsherskiyan, y'all. So, that's the thing, though. I guess what I'm trying to say right now is, I don't know why so many people get mad at the ethnic Qarsherskiyan community for giving our mixed race heritage a name, and we always knew who we were even before we named it. But all these people who thought they were white are suddenly Melanesian and identify as people of color and stuff, and no one really says anything about them. I'm not saying people should say anything about them, though. I just don't know why people talk bad about Qarsherskiyan folks. And we're not the only mixed-race community that has this origin. There's literally hundreds of these groups that are called triracial isolates. The term Qarsherskiyan is just coined for all of the smaller groups that weren't named as a way to preserve our ancestry. And you're probably thinking, but these groups can't all be the same and have all the same culture. And you're right. We recognize that there are different cultures, different types of Qarsherskiyan culture, that it varies from family to family. But we all have the same shared origin as either Atlantic Creole descendants or of triracial isolate-like ancestry. And it goes back very far into early America, before our respective countries, the USA and Canada, gained independence. So that's kind of the defining thing about who can identify as being Qarsherskiyan, what's our community. And a lot of people on the internet claim we have strange beliefs that's cult-like. So let's talk about the beliefs of our community. I already told you about our heritage and pretty much what our motives are that we identify as Qarsherskiyan, what it's for. I already told you everything earlier that I told you earlier. But what about religious beliefs? What do we believe? Well, we believe whatever an individual person in our community believes. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Some of us are Christians, some of us are Muslims, some of us are Jews, some of us are atheists, some of us become Sikhs and studying Sikhism. Different people in our community don't all share one belief. It's a really religiously diverse community. There could be somebody in our community as an individual who has cult-like beliefs, but the Qarsherskiyan community isn't a religious or faith or ideology-based community. It's more of an ethnic or family ties, like a lineage, a heritage-based community, an ethnic group of mixed origins, kind of coming together here in Eastern North America and probably representing who we are, not being ashamed of it, not hiding it anymore, if any of us were. Some of us never did, some of us did. But, there's no Qarsherskiyan God, there's no Qarsherskiyan religion, there's no Qarsherskiyan dogma or Qarsherskiyan theology. There's just different people believing whatever they want. Some of us are atheists, some of us believe in many different religious beliefs depending on the individual. People have their own beliefs. Some of us are liberal, some are conservative, some are independent, some are Democrat, some are Republican, some vote for Libertarian or Green parties, which are like third party options. A lot of us, some of us just don't vote at all and aren't involved in politics. Some of us are capitalists, some of us are communists, some of us are socialists, so like mixed market economies. There isn't really one person who represents the religious, political, ideological, or any kind of views of our whole community or any thought. It pretty much, when you identify who we are as a community, who counts as Qarsherskiyan, like I talked about the specific heritage the term was coined for, that's as far as any kind of dogma about our community exists, is just who are Qarsherskiyan people, who can identify as Qarsherskiyan. Nobody is forced to identify as Qarsherskiyan. I know some people in my family who they descended from our community because, they descended from my family, and my family's Qarsherskiyan. And there are some of us who they prefer to identify as black because they just look black to most people, and they don't see the point in talking about or admitting they have mixed heritage. They just say that they're black or light-skinned black, and that's just their choice, and that's all there is to it. They just do that, and then they're doing that. No one goes and says you have to be Qarsherskiyan. People have the choice if they want to get involved in our community and be connected with us or not. But the choice is, will they have consequences only in that if someone isn't involved in our community and they don't identify as being part of our community, they're not, in contact with people, they're not at family gatherings, they're not attending events, they couldn't suddenly come out and start claiming that they're Qarsherskiyan and asking people for help if something happens to them, and expect that people will be like, yeah, we'll support one another. Because if you're not there, here's how I see it at least. If you're not there with me during the hard times, and when I'm in the face of a potential downfall, and then when I become successful, you're suddenly in my life asking for help, I might be nice and still help you, but I don't think I should have to. I don't see it as an obligation. It really depends on the context and scenario. Obviously, if there's an emergency or someone's going to get hurt, you should, help them out. But I mean, if someone isn't involved in our community, and then, they're a descendant of our community, and they know about this, but they're not really identifying as Qarsherskiyan, they don't attend any cultural events or family functions or gatherings, they're not at the cookouts or barbecues or homecoming events, and then, because of their Qarsherskiyan heritage, someone's being racist to them and harassing them. Qarsherskiyan brother or sister, I'm from the community. These people are being mean to me because of my heritage. Help me. We'll just be like, well, not everyone, depends on the individual, but me and a lot of us would just be like, well, you don't even identify as Qarsherskiyan. You're just descended from our community. You're not really involved in our community, It sounds pretty tough, like tough love or something. But, I mean, it's true about, any other community of this sort. If you look at other mixed communities, like the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, a mixed native community that has kind of similar origins to us, but more native-leaning in heritage than black-leaning in terms of cultural influence and what parts of their ancestry they have managed to hold on to in terms of identity. If you look at them, you'll see this. They'll tell you, I don't care what anybody says. Heather Locklear is not a Lumbee. Heather Locklear descended from the Lumbee community, but she's not a Lumbee because she's never identified as Lumbee. She's never been part of the Lumbee experience. She's never came to Robeson County. Heather Locklear wasn't living as a Lumbee. She didn't identify as it. She wasn't involved in the community. So she's not Lumbee. She's just a person who descended from the Lumbee. So there are 3,000 people, give or take a few, who self-identify as Qarsherskiyan. Of nearly 500,000 descendants maximum, as much as about 500,000 people are potential people who, if they wanted to, they could claim the Qarsherskiyan heritage and reconnect and be involved in the community. And that just looks like them just embracing their mixed heritage and stuff. They have the cultural traditions from all their ancestors, and they know who they are. They attend the barbecues and stuff. Qarsherskiyan culture, it can look different depending on the family and region, because, I already explained the nature of who can count as Qarsherskiyan. So obviously there's a few subgroups, different types of people who fall under the term, who, if they wish to, they could identify as Qarsherskiyan to describe that heritage that they have. So some folks, they might be more influenced by black culture or white or native culture. There's some Qarsherskiyan people who, they're Native Americans of mixed origins, so they have some white and black ancestry. And they live on Native American reservation, and they're part of state or federally recognized tribes. And they identify as Qarsherskiyan too. And they stay in contact with, other members of our community who weren't as in touch with or continuously connected with that heritage. And then there are a couple people in our community who don't have the native ancestry. Most people have some DNA from the racially Native American peoples, but there's a few of us who don't, and most of us aren't really enrolled in any native tribes. Many people in our community will affectionately call it the Ethnic Qarsherskiyan Tribe or Qarsherskiyan Nation, but this is in the same way as the Gullah Geechee people of the Sea Islands are called the Gullah Geechee Nation, and they're recognized by the UN as a nation. That's kind of the same for our community, except none of us have approached the UN yet. We'll probably do that when more people are connected with our community and it's better organized. We got, further down the road. We are right now where the Melungeon folks were back in the 90s and early 2000s. a lot of people are finding out about the term and kind of connecting with the community and this heritage. So it's a process that takes time. Right now, as of early 2026, there's nearly 3,000 people who self-identify as ethnic Qarsherskiyan. A little more than half of them are elderly folks who usually they are not online or on. It's only like maybe as much as 1,400 ethnic Qarsherskiyan people who are really on social media, on the internet. And then, of course, not all of these people are going to be using the internet to talk about their heritage and identity. And of those who do, not all of them are going to do it every day or all the time. So there's only a couple dozen people like me representing the community online, really talking about it, posting about it, disseminating information, trying to archive our culture and history for future generations using the internet and social media. And I've become one of the top 3 to 5 people online known for doing this kind of thing for our community. And for anyone who wants to learn about us and who we are and what we stand for. So there's some people on the internet who in the last month or two, they invented a Qarsherskiyan bot farm hoax cult. Basically, the hoax targeting our community, they basically just claim that there's a cult that is going after little kids and stuff. And they talk about people who are part of the descendants of our community. They just how I explain it to you, they'll find someone who happened to descend from our community, who has a criminal record, and they'll be like, look, this kind of person's part of the community. When that person doesn't represent us and doesn't even identify as Qarsherskiyan. They're not like someone who's a leader in our community. We don't have a leader of our community. We have leaders in our community. What I mean by that is there's youth leaders like me, and this just means we're people who use social media to document our culture and our community, to archive it and preserve this information for future generations. That's like word for word what all the youth leaders say. This is our goal. We're very clear about our goals and intentions. So that doesn't mean we're in charge of the community or that we have the right to speak on behalf of other people in our community. We're all just sharing our own experiences and knowledge. We do the best we can with genuine intentions. And we try to weed out the imposters and fakes and people impersonating us who try to make us look bad. We have done a pretty good job at that. But there's a whole bot farm cult hoax going around claiming that anybody who supports us isn't a real person and they gotta be a robot, that there's bot farms on the internet operating, or that this is a psyop from the CIA. There's just people saying crazy stuff. And a few of us got pretty fed up about it for a while. And I was probably one of the last person to let it go because they were using my name and saying stuff about me personally and sending death threats to me and my relatives. They used racial slurs. They threatened to lynch my nephew, who's 9 years old, and they called him a Negro, and they said that he was going to grow up to be a pedo because he looks like one, whatever that means. They made comments on our hair textures and stuff, and they told me to go back to Africa when I've never been to Africa before. I wonder what that means or what they're talking about. But, after all this, nothing really changes. We're still here. We know who we are. We're still saying who we are. We're still proud of who we are. We all know these claims aren't true. Random people on the internet who don't know about our community and never heard of us before, sometimes, unfortunately, they believe these claims, and they even spread fake news and share posts made by trolls making allegations about our whole community. But it already did as much harm as it could. These people are pretty much now just exposing themselves and how cruel and hateful they are. All of us youth leaders have agreed to stop responding to them just today, actually. I was one of the last people to let it go. They wanted to get a reaction out of me. They wanted me to crash out and say something when I got angry so they could record it and post it online and make me look bad and say they exposed me. But I'm not going to give them what they want. We all agreed not to even address them anymore. We're just going to start blocking and reporting them. Monique did the right thing. That's what she did. As soon as they started, she blocked all their accounts and reported them to Instagram. They made an account pretending to be me, but they changed the first two letters of my first and last name around. So it was Winnin' Bright. And they used a profile photo of me when I was 12 years old. And then they used that Instagram account basically impersonating me. They went to my Instagram profile that I had that belonged to me. They looked at my followers and friends on Instagram. They followed everyone who was following me or friends with me or who I was following. And then they made posts to their stories, basically claiming things that weren't true about me. Started claiming that I threatened schools and did a bunch of bad stuff that I didn't do without any substantial evidence, except stuff that they made pretending to be me on that very account. And then, they started making Instagram posts and stories and sending it in DMs to a bunch of my friends and family. They sent something to my cousin Lily, claiming that I threatened to shoot up Woodside High School in Newport News, Virginia, which I didn't. That claim was made back in October 2023. They caught the guy who did it within 24 hours. It was some white kid. I never got expelled because I never got expelled or nothing because I didn't do that. They knew I didn't do it. The police know, the school knows. That was already taken care of years ago. I actually graduated from that very same high school. The kid who did it was permanently expelled and went to juvenile detention center. It was just some white kid. Probably was going for a hard time. You never know what people are going through. It's really sad. Maybe they just wanted school canceled, but it didn't. They actually kept school open. Crazy, I know. But those old claims people made about me, when that happened, the police came to my house. This was in October 2023, and I didn't know anyone who did it. I wasn't a snitch. People get mad and they say, you snitched. I didn't even know who did it. I just told them the truth. I didn't snitch on anyone. I didn't even know who did it. I just told them everything I knew, what I did that day at school, all the classes I went to and where I was in the building, anyone I talked to, and answered any questions they had to the best of my ability with my knowledge. And then they said something under the lines of basically okay, well, it seems like you weren't involved in this at all. If we have any more questions, we'll come back and talk to you. Thank you for being cooperative, and we'll see you again if anything comes up. And they never talked to me again. I never saw them after that. I found out the next day that they had actually caught that kid. They caught him within 24 to 48 hours. He got expelled and they sent him to juvie. Some of the teachers knew who did it. I kept asking them who the kid was. They said the kid was a minor and that they could lose their job. They couldn't legally tell me who made the threats to the school. Can you believe that? So all these people were spreading Instagram stories about me back in October 2023, sharing photos of me. They had photos of guns and claimed that they were mine and that I had them and that I was going to use them on people. And I don't have or own any guns. I never have before. I want to for hunting and self-defense purposes, and I probably will soon. I'm going to need those, and I'm glad I have a right to in this country. But as of now, I don't, and I never have. And I'm not afraid to say that because I got relatives who do. So don't think you can come after me and threaten me still. I'm not alone, by the way. Even when I'm traveling all over the USA, moving like a transient lifestyle place to place, I am still always with people, and we trust each other and know each other. I got friends to go way back to middle school before 2016. And we were always friends and talked online, even when I was states away from them. We stayed in contact all this time, and we're really close friends. I got people who have my back and who know the truth about me and who I am, what kind of person I am. And as soon as you make a claim, they'd be able to tell you if it's true or not.